All right, so here we are today in the garden. Beautiful space back here. If you can see a bit of what's here, we got the ducks and everything hanging out with us, and of
Italian
course,
plum tree
oh
right
yeah,
behind.
beautiful stuff. Yeah, so this of course is Plaedo, local rapper, artist, visionary activist in the Eugene area. So it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Pleasure to be here with you. You call me a visionary. I feel like I got to be on my game now. Holy moly.
Oh, I think a lot of cool people around here are visionaries.
Totally.
It's just about, like following your inspiration, having
Well, I do believe in
a
that.
idea of what the world can be and going after it. And that's what I think it is. So how are you doing today?
Doing great. Doing great. It's been a lovely morning. Been transplanting some thimbleberries, adding berries to the homestead and to the garden. And yeah, Jason Lieberman came over here, and so I'm taking some time off from gardening to talk about some art and activism.
Cool, cool. So of course what's really the central point of this interview today is Plaedo here has just released his new album, Tribal Hop Raptivism. So I wanted to start off by asking, what does that title really mean to you?
Yeah, so I've always been into hip hop ever since a young man, young kid, not even a man yet. And but I'm not from Bronx in the 70s or the 80s. Like, I'm not really from an urban environment. I'm from environments where, like, growing up around old folks, we would sit around campfires and they'd be playing guitars or drumming, and living in the Northwest, which has like a big festival culture or a big like camping, hiking culture. We got a lot of old growth forest. So, like, I wanted to make a type of music that was indigenous to this area, but also reflective of, like, I did grow up, even though I grew up in the Northwest with, like, drum circles and fires and stuff, I also grew up with MTV. I'm from the hip hop generation where I grew up with hip hop as a part of my life. So I wanted to make a form of hip hop that was relevant to my life as I've lived it, that's about gardening, that's about protecting natural resources from corporations, it's about activism, building community with your friends and family. And the raptivism is reflective of using art, using rap as a form of activism, using music as a form of changing minds and hearts of people.
Hmm. Good stuff. Well, you mentioned being part of the hip hop generation, and I think there's so many genres that our generation really grew up with. There was the grunge, like Nirvana, and there are all these different things. You even had the middle ground, the rap rock, and
Oh
like the
Lord.
Chili Peppers and
Well,
all
Chili
of those
Peppers were
guys.
good. Yeah, yeah.
And what was that? Forgetting the name of the one band, but anyway, there's all these genres that we've drawn influence from, and you see people going in so many different directions. Dubstep has gotten huge, and
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing. But what has really drawn you to hip hop in particular? Do you think?
Yeah, yeah. So my parents were hippies. Like, I grew up like with like the Beatles and Rolling Stones and Pink Floyd and Bob Dylan, and artists like that is who I grew up around. And I had a babysitter, maybe 5, 6 years old, and this babysitter played some rap. I think it was MC Hammer, I must admit. Played some MC Hammer for me. I was like, this is the coolest thing that has ever happened. Oh my god. I actually refused to wear all other kinds of pants my kindergarten year of school except Hammer pants after this date. I was like sold.
Nice.
But in terms of the actual music, it was the fact that you could fit so many words in a song, and even as a kid, I guess I was more into words than imagery. And so for me, I was just in love with the possibility of putting so many words in a song.
Oh,
And the rhythms too, the simple drum beat, which is like most hip hop's built around a simple 4/4 drum beat, and it's about 90 beats per minute. This the same beats per minute as like yogis chanting, and so anyway, something about like that 4/4 hip hop boom bap drum beat at a 90 beats per minute just like spoke to my heart and like made me want to bob to it even as a kid.
cool, cool. Well, I feel like one thing that a lot of people who are following hip hop these days might not even realize, and I've only just scratched the surface of, is that it's actually had a bit of a history with activism, like Bambaataa and the whole Zulu Nation. Do you feel that that there's been an element of activism, of passionate activism, held within the hip hop community all the way through the history of it?
I think there always has been. I think that hip hop was at its most radical in the late 70s and early 80s in Bronx and other areas of New York City, when there was people-powered park jams where they'd steal electricity from the city and make music on turntables. Turntables weren't even considered an instrument at this age, and these are made by kids who had their music programs cut from their schools, and so they start using turntables, the only thing they had around them, to make music. So I think that was probably when it was at its most radical in terms of out in the world. I think, you fast forward 10 years and you have Public Enemy and KRS-One and Native Tongues doing amazing, beautiful, conscious activist type of music, and that tradition's always been there, whether we're talking about Dead Prez or Sage Francis or acts like that. Mortal Technique comes to mind, Brother Ali, people like that. I think that in terms of hip-hop overall being an activist art form, I think that that's kind of fallen. It's a niche. It's a minority part of hip-hop now, and there's still that folk element of hip-hop, which hip-hop started as a folk music form, and I think that's very radical and very activist minded. But I think it's been corporatized to a large extent. Although, you have cats like me in every city of this country and cities all over the world who view hip-hop as a folk art form. They are making hip-hop for the people, and it sounds different because wherever you go, it's going to sound like their environment. And so you still have that activist folk form within hip-hop as a whole.
Yeah. Well, so what does it come down to today as far as the potential of art to be part of transforming the world? What do you think that looks like? How does art enable us to do that?
Yeah. Well, I was 16. Here's an example. I was 16 and I got a Rage Against the Machine CD for my birthday. And I probably would have been a good Democrat if I hadn't got this Rage CD. But I got this Rage CD and it was like, whoa, it was a kick in the pants. It was awesome. I was in love with it. And you open up the CD and it had, the booklet had a picture of all these books by Lies My Teacher Told Me and Noam Chomsky books and Che Guevara books. And I spent a whole summer just at the library reading these books. And I went back to high school, my junior year, and I was the annoying kid in the history and the government and the civics classes raising my hand I think that's a lie. Thomas Jefferson wasn't just an angel, he also had slaves, Andrew Jackson was a indigenous American killer, so I think that that's an example of how art has radically shifted me in my life, and there's been so many, another example, I remember being at a festival, a barter fair up in North Washington as a young man, 21. I want to give you this example to show an experiential way they can do it. I was inside of this tent and there was this funk jam band playing, and they're singing songs about love, but the thing that was radical about it is they were able to, through music, bring this whole audience together, and they would play this guitar line, and at the end of it, they had the whole audience go, Om, and then some noodling, Om, and so there's 100 people in a tent chanting Om together to a beat of some music, and when I think about that, and how it's changed my life, it, made me realize that music is an amazing thing for building community and bringing people together in a moment. And so I could go on and on about ways I think that art has changed my story, and I think that it's done the same for others too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think one cool thing in Eugene is I would say that there's a strong focus on community, or at least there's a good portion of people in the community that are actively working to be engaged with their community, and both activism and art are very central here. There's so much creativity flourishing here, and it's one of the really cool things. You have all these gardening initiatives. The avant-gardeners are really just a continuation of other things that had happened. And there's all the passion for growing food because people recognize the importance of it. Just these like ground level basic actions we can take that can make such a profound difference. So do you feel that there's a particularly unique potential or opportunity that comes from a community that has so much synergy going with music and activism and all these things?
Absolutely. If you look at history, genius and innovation does not appear in a vacuum. It's very rare that you have like the lone male or female out in the woods by themselves that writes the epic novel or develops the new technology that transforms society. I mean, there's examples in history, but what's much more common is you have a group of artists or innovators, and can be social innovators, activists, technological innovators, artistic innovators, business innovators, yada yada yada. But what you have much more often is a group of people that push each other through collaboration, through friendly competition to really change the world. And it's like the Beatniks are an example. That was a group of artists, a loosely affiliated group of artists that really inspired each other and pushed each other to be better. Or like, that certainly was an example of early old school hip hop. You see it come up in painting movements, and I mean, you wouldn't even have had the personal computer if you didn't have rivalries between like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, like the personal computer as we know it today. So I think that innovation really happens through that going on. Like, I have buddies that I record music with and I love them, but when we're on a track together, I'm like, I want to have the best verse on this track. And like, there's been times where like I've spit a verse and like my buddy Calvin Chance will go, yo, let me rewrite mine. Or like Calvin will rap his verse and we'll be on a song together, and I'll hear his and I'll be like, yo, let me rewrite and re-rap my verse to make it better. And so I absolutely see that happening, and I think it's a beautiful thing.
And do you think that's already like had a lot of influence in shaping you as an artist? Or
It has. I came to Eugene to find community. Because I didn't have community. I mean, when I was in my college town, I was the guy that rapped. And what happened there is I grew as big as I could get in my college town, and I'm still like well known there. But there was no push for me to keep evolving. I knew I had to go to a bigger pond to have people push me to keep getting better, and collaborators and competitors and all of that. And so it's absolutely changed me, and it's changing numerous other people in Eugene and other heady scenes around this country.
right on. So, at this point where you've released your album, I'm sure in some ways it's like a breath of fresh air, a huge accomplishment. And I remember you saying at your release party that you felt like it's their first really solid professional piece of work. So, I mean, where are things now? Like, where do you feel you are as an artist at this point?
Booking gigs, working hard to get out and share the art with the world. I just got added to Human Nature Festival today, and I'm going to be added to a Lost Valley Interdependence Day event. So I'm working hard on getting gigs. My next album will be totally different. This album is very like large scale political, sociological, economic, environmental ideas we're discussing with this album. big picture ideas. And my next album will be like very much about what goes on within the heart or interpersonally. And it'll be a much more intimate, personal album. But you know, I got to give this album its chance to breathe, and so I'm gonna just promote and work hard on this for a few years. And there's also a group project I'm working on called the Third Eye Clan, and a joke behind it is it's a white hippie Wu-Tang. And it's, you know, me and another DJ, and then me and 2 other MCs are working on this. And the first song we recorded together is on my album. It's called Warrior Sounds. And so that will be just a small project that'll probably come out sometime within the next year, like a 4 or 5, 6 song EP. But yeah, next personal album, I'm just taking my time to reflect on my life, you know? Like, I'm 30 now, I own a house, I have kids. It'll have song titles like Parenting is Effing Hard. As opposed from songs about gardening and songs about forest defense, which is my current project.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's great to see so many people inspired doing what they love in this community.
Mm-hmm.
It's one great thing about this place, and I hope we get to see this happening more and more places around the world, and I'm sure you're excited about the same thing happening. Well, thank you, Plaedo, for inviting YouTube into your garden.
Yeah.
And
thank you, Lieberman. Thank you, you all. What we are doing right here, both us and you, wherever you're at, is creating our own media streams, and that right there is revolutionary. Think about when I was growing up, you just had the corporate news. Now we have social media.
well, I definitely agree about all the merits of independent media, because that's exactly what we're doing out of here. You know, you're doing independent music. I'm putting videos like this on the internet, and you know, we're both loving being part of the whole thing. So thank you for having us out here, and it's been really awesome. We close out with a hug.
Oh yeah. Let's close out with a hug. Here's a digital hug. Rah! Hugging you digitally. Peace, love, joy, and wisdom. Gonna take some food that we grew. We're gonna make a lunch now. So we're gonna go fill up our bellies. Peace.